just sat there in the entire scrum of the national reporters, local reporters, answering all the questions on the first day of spring training, first full squad workout day. But now he's got to sit down with Ben and Woods, and I'm talking about the general manager, the president of baseball operations for the Padres.
Get it right.
A.J. Preller was both. He's got both titles. A.J., it's good to see you, and welcome back to spring training again. Yeah.
All right, we'll get this figured out at some point. We'll make this
He's
happen.
on. No, we got him on? Yeah.
Try again.
Thanks for having me. There he is. He's just quiet.
You hear it?
You don't hear him?
There we go. All right. Yeah, get right close. There we go.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
Now we are cooking here. How's everything?
It's good. It's always, spring training is always a great time to be out here. So, and you get the start of the year exciting, and it's maybe hoping for a little warmer weather here this week, but overall it's been good.
Not a boring or dull off season as it rarely is with you and your crew here. Obviously, great job bringing in some of the guys. We've met a couple of them, talked to them this morning. I would imagine that no general manager or owner or manager ever feels like they have too many players. We have too much depth. How do you feel finally about where the depth of the Padres are after this offseason?
Yeah, I think we when we left last year in terms of a team that got to the LCS, I think we liked a lot about our team. So we didn't feel like we had a ton more to do, but I think kind of learning. Again, like looking at the team, I think adding some veteran bats, obviously adding another premium hitter in Xander Bogaerts, and then with some of the free agent pitchers that we lost, just kind of contributing to add to the rotation. That's an every year thing, in terms of like you can honestly having that starting pitching that could carry you deep in the year. But we felt like we were able to bring back Nick Martinez and Robert Suarez. Add to the starting pitching depth, and then add either Matt Carpenter, Nelson Cruz, some veteran type bats, and clearly Xander. Those are some needs we looked at, and felt like we have a team we're excited about for the year.
That late addition of Michael Wacha last week. Is that because of the six-man rotation possibility that you wanted to have that extra guy? Is that more of a injury? They're going to happen at some point, and you wanted someone with more experience. What was kind of the thinking behind bringing in Michael Wacha?
Yeah, I just think really Michael, he's a guy the last few years we've talked about, and he's a guy that, we talked to the Matt Carpenter, Alan Craig, who works for us in the front office, or Xander, or Mike Schilt. Those guys have history with him, and I think just talked about his makeup, his competitiveness, the way he prepares. He last year in Boston, he was again 11-2 with the 3.3 ERA. He's pitched in the postseason with the Cardinals. So I think from our standpoint, again, just like having a proven starter that we feel like can get us, can get us into games in a good spot with our offense and our pen. And I think also we like a lot of the starters that were in AAA last year or kind of on trying to compete for a spot. But I think it just gives us a little bit more depth. We saw at the beginning of last year when we added Minaya at the end of spring training, and then Mackenzie Gore kind of stepped up for us at the beginning part of the year. I think that was one of the kind of the untold stories of last year at the beginning part of the season, what that rotation was able to do to get us into the season. And I think with Wacha, we were hoping to have a similar setup early in the year where our starters are able to pace themselves and put us in a good spot to win some games.
Talking to Padres general manager, president, A.J. Preller, Ben and Woods this morning, and let's talk about Manny. We've been talking about him all morning. We've talked about Manny a lot because Manny's a really great player. And, it didn't come as any surprise, I don't think, to anyone that's followed along that Manny would, say, I'm going to choose to exercise my opt-out. How do you take that when you hear that publicly? Is that something that you were expecting as well?
Yeah, Manny, again, he's got the right in his contract. We understood that, when we did the deal with him, and that was important to him and his side at the time, was having that flexibility. And he's played incredibly well here. I think it was about 4 years ago, right at this time, that we signed Manny, which was a huge thing for our franchise. And Manny's he's always a huge priority for myself, for the organization. but again, like, have a great relationship with Manny, and ultimately it's his right to kind of talk about, hey, this is from a business standpoint, this is where my market is, and this is what what he's thinking about. And I think from our standpoint, we're just looking for him to be here a long time, and and ultimately, when he said what he said the last couple of days about the opt-out possibility, it's not really a surprise. I think we've been preparing for it, and him and his agent, they've been very straightforward with everything, and again, like we're hoping to have him here for a long time. We'll see how things play out.
As it relates to Manny, but other players, you've negotiated extensions with Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, but they were all approaching free agency. It's a little different when it's an opt-out, because Manny, we were talking about this earlier, if he wants to, he could not opt out. He could stay for another 5 years. So he's got that security already, and you don't have that necessarily carrot like, okay, well, let's get a deal done now, then you don't have to worry about it. Manny can do what he wants at this point because of that opt-out. Does that change the equation for you?
Yeah, it's probably one of the things that not getting into too many details over any of the conversations, but it's a little bit different situation, how you evaluate that, because it's not, that there is the, he has 6 years and $180 million left in the contract, and ultimately that's been part of our conversation, is how do we evaluate it, how do we evaluate adding years to that, to the current deal. And again, like, I think just been like, in our conversations, it's been straightforward. This is kind of what we're thinking, and this is what Manny's side's thinking. But again, it is each one of these situations a little bit different, and having the opt out is part of the equation here. I mean,
you look around, talking to AJ Preller on Ben and Woods, you look around, the superstar after superstar, and you forget. I mean, Josh Hader walks by and I'm like, oh my God, Josh Hader's there. You forget there's so many. You don't, but we do. The fans, you can get lost in it with all the star power that's on this team. Who are you excited about? Maybe that's not a superstar. Who are you feeling, man, I love the work that this guy's putting. I know it's only been a couple days, but just off season and touching all the players as much as you do. Who are you kind of, I'm expecting big things from this guy to make a jump, maybe the next level.
I mean, it's that time of year, spring training. There's a lot. We could stay for like 2 hours and talk about, like some of the different things. I mean, like, again, like seeing like, where a guy like Trent Grisham, like, who's, he's been right in the middle of it for us the last few years, in center field, Gold Glover, and kind of seeing how he bounces back from the offensive year last year. I think he's very motivated to come back and understands, like we saw in the playoffs, he's a key piece for us. And when he gets going, it feels like in 20 and 21 at different times when he was rolling, like the offense rolled. Again, like in the infield, kind of seeing how everybody settles into their spots, how Bob decides to utilize, the different infielders that we have. I think watching Luis Campusano the last few years and seeing his progression. He went down, played in the Dominican a little bit, came to San Diego, and at the ballpark 7 days a week, working out really hard, and it's kind of carried that into the early part of spring training. So, I think he's somebody that when we looked at from last year to this year, improving behind the dish, seeing Nola, I think he understands the way he played it down the stretch and in the postseason, kind of carrying that into the year. Those are some spots from an offensive standpoint, from a position player standpoint, and I think like we mentioned, some of the guys like an Adrian Morejon coming in, who's a great talent and who looked like he was kind of starting to, push the envelope there in 21 spring training, got hurt last year, got a chance to come back to the mound and kind of seeing what his progression looks like. So we have some really super talented pitchers, and he's probably at the top of the list for us here in terms of this camp.
Well, yeah, and I mean, watching the playoffs last year and what Nola was able to do was incredible. I mean, he went every inning of every game, took every AB, and you did. After a 162-game season and then the grueling nature of the playoffs, and you run out of gas. You just do, and I got to imagine for a guy like Campusano who was there and ready to go. How much did that motivate him, do you think, to say, they're going to play me next year? They're going to play me in the playoffs in the biggest games.
Yeah, I think for everybody, just like being that close to the World Series and going through those series in New York and the environments in LA. I think that was Bob's message today to the group was, again, like kind of building off of those feelings we had from last year. And I think for Campy, again, he's had 2 years now with AAA. He's had, in terms of, he played well down the stretch, catching a few of those Musgrove games down the stretch, hit a big bomb against Zach Gallen, one of the best pitchers in the league to win us a game. And then being on the postseason roster, I think we're looking for the whole group to build off of that, and Campy being no exception to that.
AJ, the phrase "four shortstop infield" has been thrown out a lot. I know with no shift, people are saying, that could work well for the Padres. Do you put together the team with an eye on some of these new rules, or is there a danger of not really knowing what the impact is going to be, that you don't want to make too many changes built around rule changes that you don't even know what are going to look like in a few months?
Definitely aware, like the rules changes, like exactly how it's going to play out. Not really sure on that front. And in terms of like putting the teams together, we talk about it. The shift. Especially some of the speed component in terms of the running game, the bases. But I think like good players are good players, complete teams are complete teams. It's kind of like even like another when you try to build a team based on your ballpark sometimes, or whether it's park factors or weather or different ultimately it's like the best players kind of like they are able to perform. So sometimes it's I've been part in my prior life in Texas, which was it's tough to pitch here in this ballpark. When we got really good pitchers, they pitch pretty well in that ballpark. So that's more of what we look at.
Weird how that works.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, and then the good players can usually adjust and adapt. And I think with Bob and the group, they're gonna adapt pretty quickly, and we have some talented guys that can do it.
Talking to AJ Preller on Ben and Woods. Last one for me. What are your thoughts on a lot of people talking about how you guys are doing business? It bothers me when people talk about how we do business. I got to imagine. You and Peter and Eric, and when you sit down and you're seeing kind of national headlines, you may, well, the way that they're doing it is wrong and it's unsustainable. How does that affect you personally, or does it?
No, honestly, I think it just focused on going out and putting our team in the best position possible to win games and do it in a way that's really exciting, that the fans want to come to the ballpark and see. So, ultimately it's that simple. Like if we put a product on the field every single year where people want to come out and see it, and we're playing deep into October. Let other people kind of debate and talk about, which is there a right way to do this, a different way to do it?
As long as it gets done.
Yeah,
right?
To me, it's like there's a lot of different ways to build teams, and there's going to be, over the course, even like in the last 3 or 4 years, we've been in the playoffs a couple times, and the 20 team was different payroll than we have currently, different type of roster, and hopefully we're talking about a team in 3 or 4 years that has a different type of structure. So, but the bottom line is, as long as you're successful and you're winning, and that's being consistent. That's what we focus on more than any of the talk, that we're seeing or may see in the industry about how we're doing it.
Before you go, I've got a couple of questions about Xander Bogaerts. We got to meet him this morning. He was fantastic.
Yep.
I mean, what a terrific personality. Seems like he's going to fit in well. He did tell us, though, that he had some ideas for Bob Melvin, that he's already gone to the skipper with some thoughts on the lineup and some other things. Has he had any ideas for you? Does he have a list? How does that work? Does he submit it? What's going on with Xander?
No list from Xander so far. Maybe we'll see when we get to the trade deadline if he wants to win. Some of our guys do that, so we'll see where it goes. But
they come to you with a list of demands of things that they want, guys. They should go get.
We got some junior GMs in the clubhouse, so you take in some advice, but
GMs.
But it's like anything else. Like we usually, when we're sitting there in the in the room trade deadline time, we get our Ben and Woods fix.
Yeah,
we're kind of like, hey, this is what Paul's thinking. This
What's
is
he likes. This guy.
Yeah. We make sure we hear what AC's thinking, and we do the opposite usually and whatnot. So
that's part two of the question, because Xander also told us that in Boston, the front office specifically told him and the players, don't listen to sports talk radio at all in Boston. Have you ever told anyone not to listen to Ben and Woods on your roster? Just
we have not. We've done a lot of things here last year. That's not been one of them, honestly.
Good.
So no.
All right, good to know. We're still okay. We're in the green.
Yes.
With AJ Preller. AJ, good luck this season. It's great having you stop by.